Today's webinars all around using the 5 whys root cause analysis in your customer feedback process. Just a couple of things right up front. We've got today's audio. I'll log in on how to get today's audio, and that's there at the front. So if you just follow those instructions, you'll be able to get into the audio. So a couple of housekeeping items before we move on. The first one is questions. If you've got any questions, go to the question tab there, put some chat in, and we'll record the questions and answer those later. We'll also send a link of the recording to everybody that attends, so you can get a link to that recording later. There'll also be a set of slides available as well, so you'll be able to get all that stuff later. So let's move on to the webinar proper today. It's a half-an-hour webinar, and we look to be finishing up about 2:30. So today's webinar is all about using the 5 whys root cause analysis process in your customer feedback. The 5 whys root cause analysis approach in your customer feedback process. Cause analysis approach, and it can be really very effective for organisations who want to identify from their customer feedback the things they can do and the things they can change in their business. It's a really simple, really straightforward approach, so it's an approach we'd really like to use, and lots of different organisations have made use of it. My name's Adam Ramshire. I'm the Director and Owner of Genro. We're putting on this webinar today. My background is customer experience management, customer feedback, and Net Promoter Score. You can see a little bit more about me on LinkedIn there. And we've also got quite a lot of articles from that link as well, so you can see some articles that I've written as well. A little bit of background about Genro. We've been in business just over 12 years now. We're a customer experience management and a customer loyalty management specialist organisation based here in Sydney in Australia. And we help organisations listen to their customers, measure how well they're delivering, and drive improvement. Really, there's a few different areas we do that in. We do that around customer feedback. We do a lot of work around Net Promoter Score. We do a lot of work around customer experience management and customer-focused culture change. So these are the areas of business that we look at, and that's what our organisation's all around. Okay, so let's get on to today's agenda. Today's agenda is all about root cause analysis. And it's all about the 5 whys process and how you might use it. So first off, we'll talk today about why you'd bother with root cause analysis. Not everybody's heard of this approach, or not everybody's heard of root cause analysis or why it's important, but we'll talk a little bit about that right up front. Then we'll look at how you run a 5 whys process. The process isn't difficult in general, but there are a few things that you just need to be aware of to make it easy for you to use and apply the idea. And there are a few little tricks that you need to be aware of as well. And the last thing we'll do is we'll look at how to use 5 whys in your customer feedback process. 5 whys can be used very effectively in the customer feedback process, and so we'll show you one really nice approach that not only helps in the root cause analysis, or not only helps in the root cause part, but also helps in employee engagement within the customer feedback process. So we'll do a few different things today, and that's what today's agenda is. Firstly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about exactly what the closed-loop customer feedback process is. So I just want to talk about each of the steps for a few seconds, just to put the root cause analysis and the 5 whys process into context. So the closed-loop process has a few different elements. It has a listen element. This is where you survey your customers and listen to what they're saying, collect information. This might be your Net Promoter Score data collection. This might be data collection of all sorts of different approaches. But this is where you listen to customers and understand exactly what they're telling you. There's a service recovery or tactical feedback or react process. That is where you go back to customers and act on the feedback they've given you immediately. So if a customer's given you a low score or a score that exhibits some frustration, you can immediately go back to that customer and correct the issue that they've got. The next part of the process is understanding, and this is all about identifying customer loyalty drivers and performing some root cause analysis. And you see, root cause analysis is the part highlighted because that's really what we're talking about here today. After you understand what's driving the customer experience, you can move on to designing and the highest value changes in the business. When you've done that, you can move on to acting, which is implementing the changes in the business. And of course, it's a closed loop, so we go back to the start and start the process all again. But you can see the root cause analysis piece is a really important part of this process, and it fits right in between listen and design. So in order to make changes in your business, You really need to understand what the root causes or the issues are in your business. So that's where that's where a really important part of the process occurs. So that's what we're focusing on. So just to step back a little bit and talk a little bit about 5 Whys and have a bit of history about the process. 5 Whys has been around for quite some time now, and it's one of a suite of tools used in the continuous improvement and the quality areas of most businesses. If you think Lean Six or Six Sigma or TQM, these are all areas where you might use a 5 Whys process, or where the 5 Whys process is really used most often. But it was invented back a few years ago and is now part of the Toyota Motor Corporation and its manufacturing methodology. So it's really very deep into the customer feedback process. So what is it? It's one type of root cause analysis tool. It's only one of the tools that you can use. It's not the only root cause analysis tool, but it is a very good and very quick and very easy to use root cause analysis tool. So that's why we're talking about it here today. It's a very methodical approach to uncovering the underlying causes of an issue. So rather than just treat the symptoms, using a root cause analysis like 5 Whys, you can really get to the underlying cause of an issue, identify what that issue is, understand how to change it, and so you can correct the underlying issue that's existing in the business and prevent issues from happening in the future. So that's really why we look at it and why root cause analysis is so important. So why is root cause analysis? Well, if we step back and have a think about it, root cause analysis is really not so much about fixing the problem that you have today. It's a little bit about fixing that problem, but really it's all about identifying and preventing future problems. So you do need to fix the problem that you've got today. You do need to resolve whatever customer issue there is. You do need to sort that out. But really, root cause analysis is not about fixing today's problems, but preventing future problems from occurring at any point. So that's really what the whole goal of root cause analysis is and why you go about the process. There's lots of benefits in root cause analysis and this continuous improvement process. Often root cause analysis and making changes that fix the root cause problems will lower costs in a business. They'll make the business more efficient. There'll be less rework in the business and essentially just lower the overall cost base of the business. They'll also improve customer loyalty if you make sure that you don't make errors in the customer experience. If you have a clean, easy to understand, well-oiled customer experience, you're going to improve your customer loyalty. And of course, if you do both of those two that you see there, lower costs and improve customer loyalty, you're going to do the thing that's most important in the whole process, which is increasing profit. That's what's the most important part about root cause analysis, is really about driving and improving the business profitability. So we don't do this just because it seems like fun or just as a diversion from the business. It really is to drive overall customer loyalty and improve profits. And really the most important part of what I've just talked about here is that we're fixing the cause, not just the symptom. A lot of times in business we'll go around, we'll identify an issue and we'll fix it. The customer hasn't gotten their order, so we'll send the order again. The customer has an issue with some instructions on a how to use page, so we'll explain to the customer how to solve the problem. One of the real issues there is that you're focusing on the symptom, which is this current order that's not been delivered. What you really need to do is focus on the underlying cause. What's driving that order from not being delivered on time and in the right way? If you drive from that perspective, you can prevent that order from ever being a problem in the future, or that order process from ever being a problem in the future. Preventing that from being a problem in the future will drive down costs, improve customer loyalty, and then you can focus on correcting and fixing the next problem and the next problem in the business. So it's really those issues from occurring again and preventing any rework in the business. So that's why root cause analysis. So now let's talk a little bit about 5 Whys, and 5 Whys is one of these root cause analysis processes. The first thing we do when we go about a 5 Whys process is we need to agree on the problem statement. So we need to really agree and identify what it is that we're trying to solve. And this is not always easy. It's really something that you need to think carefully about sometimes. And there's a really great quote from Albert Einstein that I love, and it talks about if you had an hour to save the world, spending 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute finding solutions. So really, when you go about the very start of this process, when you identify what the problem is that you're trying to fix, spend time there. Spend time defining and clearly understanding what that problem is, outlining it, writing it down, getting it really clear in your head. Because if you're not clear about what the problem is and what the issue is, then you're not going to have a clear understanding of how to fix and solve that customer issue or that problem in the business. So that's the first step. The first step is to agree on the problem statement and agree up front what it is. The second step is pretty straightforward. It's to ask, why did this happen? What was the underlying cause of this particular thing occurring in the business? What caused us to have this problem? And I minutes. So then when you've asked that and you've answered the question and you've got an answer there, you need to look at that response and say, well, is this reason, is this because that we have here the real root cause? Is it really the thing at the bottom of our business that's causing all of the issues? Does this root cause, and the way you can really understand and identify whether you've gotten to the root cause of an issue is most often a root cause, the issue will, or the because will look towards a process. So if you've gotten at some point, you've asked the why and you've gotten the answer to that why question. If you're looking at a process, then you're most likely looking at the root cause of the issue, because that's something you can fix today and tomorrow. If the why you have in front of you, if the why you're looking at is not a process, then you need to ask again, why did this happen? And you need to keep asking that until you go through the process and you get to this root cause, this process at the bottom. And typically, and when you get to that root cause, obviously you have to address and fix it in your business. That's the whole reason we're doing this. Typically, the reason that we call this the 5 whys process is typically it'll take 5 questions like that to get to the real root cause, to get to the process at the bottom that's not working well or doesn't exist. That's why it's called the 5 whys process. More often than not, we stop too early in these analysis processes, and we stop way too early, and we just get to another symptom and we fix that other symptom rather than fixing the real root cause. Okay, so that's how the process works. Let's have a look at a really simple example. So the really simple example here is the problem statement is you walk out into the car park and you find that the vehicle won't start, that you can't start your car in the car park. So that's obviously a symptom of a problem. So let's do a little bit of investigation and ask why the car won't start. Well, we have a look around, we check a few things, and then we realize and identify that the battery's dead. So we've identified that, gone through the why process, and the second why is the battery's dead. But we realize that that's really probably only another symptom. We've only gotten to another symptom of the issue here. So we need to ask the why question again. So let's ask why again. And this time we do a little bit more investigation and we work out that the reason the battery's dead is because the alternator isn't functioning, that the alternator is broken in some way. But then we work it out, we have a look and have a think about that again, and we realize again that, hey, this is really only another symptom of the process. We need to go further. So we ask the why again. We have a look, we do a bit more investigation, and we see that the alternator belt is broken. So we see that when we look into the engine, we see the alternator is in a couple of pieces sitting at the bottom. But then we say to ourselves, actually, really, we still only have a symptom here. It's still only a symptom of the problem. Alternator belts don't break just for the sake of it. So we ask again, and so what we identify now is that actually the alternator belt's been there for 20 years, it's tired and ragged and worn and it's basically worn out. But even now we're still only at a why. We're still only at a symptom of the issue here. So let's go one more stage and we do a little bit more investigation. We have a look at our vehicle logbooks and we work out that the vehicle hasn't been to a service, hasn't been serviced in 10 years. And what we notice here is that while the other ones, all the other whys we see here were statements, The last one is really about a process. The process here is that the vehicle wasn't maintained according to the recommended service schedule. If we were maintaining the vehicle in that way, then we wouldn't have been in this position at all. So we probably have now got to the process, the real root cause of the problem. So of course we have to go and we have to replace the alternator belt because that's broken. So that'll fix the alternator, which means the battery will charge, which means the vehicle is going to start next time. So we need to fix all the things that get us going today. But the most important thing we need to do here is we need to make sure that we change the process about how the vehicle was maintained. So we put the vehicle under a regular maintenance schedule. So you can see this is how we go through a really simple 5 whys process. We go from the problem statement, which is the vehicle will not start, all the way through to the battery's dead, all the way through to the vehicle's not being maintained on the service schedule. So you see how we get all those different elements there. Let's look at this a little bit differently. Let's look at what would happen if we only treated the symptoms. If we walked out into the car park, found our car didn't work, and we could simply replace that battery. So if we replace the battery, that'll be fine. We could drive out of the car park, but we find a couple of days later the battery's not going to start. The vehicle's not going to start because the battery's going to be dead. If we fix the alternator, or if we had a look at the alternator and tried to fix that, again, we're going to find in a couple of days' time the battery's flat because the alternator belt's broken. It's still broken. You know, even if we fix the alternator belt today, it's still going to be broken and the vehicle's not going to start at some point in the future. Even if we get the alternator belt fixed and it's repaired and it's up and running and everything's good, that fixes us for today, but it still doesn't address the underlying problem that we've got. And the underlying problem is that at some point in the future that alternator belt's going to wear out again. And so we need to be very well aware that what we actually need to do is fix the process. And so here we go, we're right back at this process idea again. So if we fix the process, then we know that at all times the vehicle's going to start and never leave us stranded. So you can see the real power of 5 whys is that we go through the symptoms. We keep kind of unlayering this onion until we find the core process that's causing the issue. Fix that core process. And if we fix that core process, then we're going to fix the whole problem forever. Now, next time out, you know, the tires might be flat, but that's another issue that we can address. But we're going to have a good, strong battery so long as we keep the vehicle maintained properly. So that's why treating the root cause is so important. And this is how the 5 whys process will get you from the problem statement all the way through the process, the root cause process. So when we do this, if we're not really careful, we can be taken for a loop and end up in the wrong place and not really get to the bottom of the problem. So let's have a look at another potential issue. Let's say that we're doing a 5 whys analysis in our business and we identify that sales are down. Sales are down for the quarter. Let's go through the first why. Why are sales down? Well, we've identified that we aren't processing enough leads. So there just aren't enough leads being driven through the business. We're not processing enough leads. But that's not the final answer. Well, what we identify is actually we're not processing enough leads simply because we don't have enough salespeople. Okay, well, why don't we have enough salespeople? Well, we don't have enough salespeople because we've laid a whole bunch of salespeople off in the last year. Okay, so that's interesting, but why have we laid off salespeople? Now, we laid off salespeople because we had to cut costs. Well, that's never a great outcome, but all right. Why are we cutting costs? What are the issues that are driving us to cut costs? Okay, so now we say, well, we're cutting costs actually because sales are down, so we don't have enough money to spend on salespeople. You see the issue that we've turned up here is that we've gotten to what we think is the root cause of our issue, but actually we're just back at the start of the problem. Okay. But the reason we're back at the start of the problem is that we never really got to identify the process that caused that issue. We never identified what the process was. We never identified exactly what the story was. We didn't have the process underlying the issue. Okay, so if we don't, you can see here that if we don't sort what the process out, if we don't identify the process cause, then we can quite often turn back to the start and be back at the start of the process. So you really have to stay on target when you want to find this process cause. You really have to identify what the underlying process is. So let's run that again. Okay, so let's start out with sales are down. We've been there before. Sales are down because we aren't processing leads. We aren't processing enough leads. Okay, let's go down a slightly different track. And this track is where we're not processing enough leads because we haven't automated our leads management process. Oh, well, that sounds like a pretty reasonable kind of outcome. Let's keep tracking along. Let's identify what the driver of that is. Well, we haven't automated because we haven't invested in a CRM. So we don't have the right sort of CRM. We haven't got the automation tools that we want, so we can't automate this leads management piece. But why haven't we invested in a CRM? Okay, we didn't invest in CRM because there wasn't a business case. When we went to ask for the investment money to do that, we weren't allowed to invest because we didn't have that business case. But again, why didn't we have a business case? Okay, we didn't have a business case because we don't calculate the value of leads. So because as a business, we aren't calculating the value of leads, we can't go through all these we can't get to process enough leads because it just cascades down the chain there. So you see the solution here is to introduce a process to calculate the value of leads so that we can make better investment decisions. You can see that this solution might actually help in lots of different ways in the business, not just help in the one solution that we're looking for, which is processing enough leads, but we might be able to use this in different places. But you can see the underlying issue here is a process issue. We're not calculating the value of leads. We don't have a process to calculate that on the business. So if we put that in place, then we're going to find what we need to do. But hopefully you can see that if we just go from point to point to point without looking for the underlying process in all of this, we end up kind of where we started out, just fixing problems as they go. We need to fix processes as we go, not fix problems. Okay, so that's staying on target. The other thing that you can often come up against in a 5 whys process is a situation, and we'll start out with the same example. We can start out with a situation where actually we go through the process. Why our sales are down because we aren't processing enough leads. We might actually turn up to have 2 different very viable and worthwhile and reasonable reasons to do that. So one is because we don't have enough salespeople, and the other is because we don't have an automated leads management process. So both of those are valuable. So we don't cut one off and only focus on one. We actually continue to look at both. So you drive that 5 whys process down and follow both down to find the process on both sides. There might be 2 processes here that aren't working, so we need to follow both down. Okay, so let's look at some of the benefits that we've talked about and that this process gives us. One is that 5 whys is really simple. It's easy to use, can be explained very quickly. I've just done it here in a few minutes for you. It can be used by people across the organization. So it's really simple and easy to understand, easy to use. Second one is it's really very effective. It really helps you separate out the symptoms from the causes and identify what that root cause of a problem is. Too often when we try and solve problems in an organization, we stop at the first or second or maybe even the 3rd why sometimes. We never really get to the underlying issue that's sitting under there. And we really need to solve those problems in order to be more effective. So it helps us to get to the root cause of problems. It's very effective at splitting symptoms from causes and process causes. It's also very comprehensive. You can determine relationships between various problem causes. So it's quite a comprehensive and inclusive approach as well. It's really engaging, and this is very valuable in the customer feedback process we'll talk about in a couple of seconds. This really engages everybody in the organization very effectively because everybody is working with the customer feedback information. And it really produces cross-functional interaction, teamwork. It just makes it much more engaging for everybody in the organization because everybody can become involved. So really, some really good benefits to use the 5 whys process. Okay, so how do we use this approach with Net Promoter or customer feedback data? You can use it with both. So the first part is, we can use it in a tactical way, and this is the way I'll talk about here today. You can use it in your organisation on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis, where you process some customer issues through the 5 Whys process, and I'll show you how to do that in a couple of seconds. You can also use it in a strategic way as a second pass to a more complex problem. So if you've got a larger customer feedback problem, you can use it as a kind of second-tier approach. And the tactical way is a really good way to drive employee engagement in the whole customer feedback process. So that's what I'll talk about here today. So tactical, how do we use 5 Whys and customer feedback? Well, here's an approach that I'll suggest everybody use, and it will really drive a change focus for the organisation. So what I suggest you do is put some time on the weekly staff or group meeting agenda. Set aside 10 or 15 minutes on the weekly agenda. And if you have every 2 weeks, set aside 10 or 15 minutes every 2 weeks. Set aside this time in a regular way so people know it's coming up. Then grab some verbatim comments from your lowest scoring responses. So find some customers who aren't happy. If you're using Net Promoter, then zeros and ones are a great place to start this conversation. Find some customers that really aren't happy. So grab some commentary. What you want here is raw comments, because that's the kind of grist to this mill. Then frame up the comment as a problem statement. We talked about that earlier. Make sure you've got a really clear problem statement. So if you've got a piece of 2 or 3 issues in it, or if you have a piece of customer commentary that's got different areas or different ideas or whatever, pull it apart so you have just the one problem to work with. So don't try and split this up. Make it in one focused way. So then run the 5 Whys process on that first problem. So do the whole 5 Whys that we just talked about. Look to get to a process outcome at the end of it. Identify what that process might be, and you can do this in 10 or 15 minutes. Grab a sheet of butcher's paper or a whiteboard, and you can really quickly get through this stuff. We really engage everybody in the meeting into the whole process. Then, and this is probably the most important part, assign somebody in the group to take action and report back. So somebody should take away that process, have a look at it, validate it, look for a solution, maybe find if it's a big problem, maybe assign it to a team, but assign it to somebody to come back and report back at the next weekly meeting. So then you've really got the continuous improvement process starting out. So that last part is the most important piece, to be honest, is to get out and take action. So what are the benefits of doing this in a customer feedback context in a weekly meeting? One is you really get this culture of change into the organisation. You're really getting into the rhythm of change for the organisation. So most often in these continuous improvement processes, if you try and make some small changes in the business, it kind of unsticks the company and unsticks the organisation, and you can start to make bigger changes. So these small changes pile up and move forward, and people will see the value in it. Staff engagement goes way up. People can see real action coming from this customer feedback. So it's really worthwhile. Staff feel engaged in the process. As you do it, costs will come down. There'll be less rework. There'll be less orders sent to the wrong place. So you'll be able to focus more on what's going on. So costs will definitely come down in your business. Fewer resources will be required. You can really focus on improving the business even more. So there's real value there. You'll improve your customer experiences because customers will be happier. The experience will be more consistent. Your Net Promoter or customer loyalty scores are probably going to go up. With all of that, your profit's going to go up. So some real benefits to starting in a really simple way and driving small changes at the level of the frontline people or people in the organisation. Grab customer feedback for the different groups and then channel it in and have people make small changes. So that's really the benefits of 5 Whys at the level of the customer feedback group. So we're coming into the end of today's session here today. So I just want to recap. So I want to recap about why bother with root cause analysis. Root cause analysis is a great way to improve your business and solve issues now that will also prevent the issue from occurring in the future. I've talked about how to run the 5 Whys process, identify a good, clean problem statement, then ask the 5 whys continually until you get to a real process endpoint. So identify that process at the endpoint. And how to use 5 whys in your customer feedback process. I really suggest you start with your small teams and grabbing real customer feedback and using that in the small team scenario. So take small actions in those teams. You're amazed at how much value that can drive and how quickly you can drive it. So we are at the end of our time. I want to just put up a couple of resources. We'll send this out with the rest of the presentation so you'll be able to get these resources. We've got a root cause analysis process. That's a blog post on our website. We've also got a root cause analysis Excel template, which is a really simple template that can make it easier for you to pull this stuff together. We've got a link there for that as well. And the last thing we've got is we offer some services around customer feedback and root cause analysis. So there's a link to that on our website as well. Just want to say, we're just on 2:30 now, so I want to thank everybody for coming along. I hope everybody's found some really good value in the session. What we'll do is we'll send the video from the session or the recording from the session out, and we'll also send the slides out to everybody that attended, so we've got that. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Look forward to talking to you at the next of these webinars that we run. Thanks very much, everybody.